Hello, everyone, and welcome to this roundtable panel on education for all, bridging knowledge gaps across continents. My name is Lingi Tao, Communications Director for GatherVerse, and I am very happy to have with me a roster of leaders who are going to help us demystify this roundtable panel. Panelists, I ask you to introduce yourselves and I ask you to be very brief because it's going to be a very fast ride and we have a lot to unpack. I will start with you, Paige. Please start by introducing yourself. Tell us who you are, why you're here briefly, and we will pass it on all the way to Ellie, who is just joining it right now. Paige, the mic is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lynn and GatherVerse. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Paige Dansinger. I'm the founding director of Better World Museum, and I have been a participant in museum education and especially women and diverse and youth teen empowerment education within digital realms and museum engagement.
That is very interesting. We're very happy to have you once again. Brandon, nice to see you.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brandon Z. Hoff, and I lead an organization called Rudy, the Responsible Use of Digital Intelligence. And we sit at the intersection of really technology and education and social impact. And so right now we're trying to understand how large language models impact literacy and what we can do to be able to encourage better forms of functional literacy as we kind of navigate into this more tech-centered world. So happy to be here.
We are happy to have you as well. Brandon Ellis. Your mic is muted. Can you mute? We can't hear you. All right. So, Ophir, over to you. You're muted as well. Can you mute?
Yeah, sorry, my bad. So I am a co-founder and design director with the Academy of Art Design and Strategy. We teach young professionals and corporates how to incorporate design thinking, strategy, leadership, and also AI. So we sit at the intersection of business, design, and tech. And I'm also a designer at a design consultancy that we have founded. So happy to be here.
We're happy to have you as well. Cinnamon, over to you. You're muted. Can you mute? All right. As she figures out the mic, maybe let's head it over to you, Charles.
Sure. My name is Dr. Caleb Charles, and I am the Department Chair of Cybersecurity at Capital Technology University, where we specialize in computer science, artificial intelligence governance, and cybersecurity and cyber analytics.
Well, we're happy to have you here. Cinnamon, can you go?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Hi, everyone. My name is Cinnamon White. I'm a computer science educator and advocate for AI and education, founder of WeTech, Women Everywhere in Tech, and CEO of Techno. Here to continue to close the gender gap in technology.
Wow. We're happy to have you. Dr. Tom, over to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Tom Slavinger. I founded the company Telematic Studios, which is a music company that specializes in online live performance in real time. And my purpose in founding this company after using this technology during the pandemic to continue to conduct our ensembles at the college where I teach is to create more access and inclusion among musicians and connecting musicians in an online space in real time where they can make music together.
Wow, we're happy to have a musician in this panel as well. Ellie, over to you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to GatherVerse. I'm Ellie. I'm a cyborg anthropologist and technology ethicist. And for this panel on education, I can talk more about the education work that I've brought back to my community. Happy to be here.
Wow. Happy to have you once again. I think everyone has introduced themselves. And shall we begin, dear panelists? Okay, strong. So this is a very, very interesting topic. And we had a fireside yesterday that I felt was very, very impactful. And this is a continuum to the whole sector of education. And I want to draw so much wisdom from you. And I will start with you, Paige. And anyone can chime in as well. What are the biggest challenges in expanding access to education worldwide?
Well, certainly access itself, Wi-Fi, technical tools. I've been really had the honor recently to be working with two organizations, Glittering World Girl and Indigenous Lifeways in New Mexico. And both of these organizations, run by Crystal Curley and Keila Martinez, have been providing headsets for the libraries on the reservations and in their communities. And I think one headset can break great barriers, but we need to see a million headsets breaking these barriers through traditionally communities that can be better served throughout indigenous, diverse, and rural communities. So that looks like Wi-Fi access sometimes. That looks like working one-on-one or with small groups or training trainers. But really, I think that the onus can be also shared with large corporations putting money into commitment to communities.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. And I want to build up on the aspect of corporations and also generally the Wi-Fi internet access, which we still talk about it till today. Personally, I have experienced the days without internet, and I realized I'm not that far from being dropped off of the world of technology because of just infrastructural issues. Cinnamon, maybe you can build up on this topic of challenges. What have you seen in your field? What have you seen in empowering women as well?
I would say that following up on what Paige says, one of the biggest things is access. There's several other just as large barriers we're dealing with as far as a gender inequality, lack of infrastructure, geographic isolation. And one of the biggest ones that we were discussing earlier was the overall fact of just basic blatant discrimination. So we're up against several different barriers that can be broken down into micro sections that can be addressed, everything from the hardware that you were talking about to even the teacher training, able to get it to them. So one of my favorite statements is bringing action to that access, because we are putting it out there. There are online and offline softwares. There are internets that's reaching to our rural areas, but they're now that access, we have to take action. It has to be utilized. You have to take a radical step in that direction to make that what they say is available to actually make it happen.
Yeah, you said something very, very important, bringing action to that access. And I just want to follow up on that. You mentioned being radical. Paint a picture of what that looks like, if you may.
Well, I would say that from my perspective, it's called sort of getting it out of the mud. You have to actually do the task. You can't just continue to make the software programs. You can't just continue to train the teachers. We all know as educators that the lack in educating our girl is absolutely massive when it comes to the overall effect that it has on our global society, not alone just independent communities. So when you talk about it, you have to take, I think I have to take those steps into getting this information, taking that action and applying it to the access that has already been made available. we can always continue to make the access better. But I think more so right now, there's such a plethora available that we need to
Yes.
take it and apply it, actually do the job. And in so doing, get from behind the computer and in front of the youth, in front of the professionals, in front of anyone that is able to apply AI technology, data technology, cloud technology, the top 3 technologies that we're working with right now.
Yes, that is very strong. Thank you for elaborating that. I really resonate with that. Brandon Ellis, let me bring this to you, and also the other Brandon. I'm going to bring the both of you here. How can technology make learning opportunities more widely available?
And can you hear me now? Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, awesome. So personally, I think some of the things that we sort of experienced is when we're in America and we're teaching hydroponics and we're working with simulations and such, it's very easy to sort of try to convey that, even though it's a difficult subject. The moment we try to go and teach that in Swahili, it's ridiculously difficult. But I can plug it into handy dandy chat GPT or something else. And now I can take what I was already doing and expand that to, literally hundreds of thousands of people. And that's something that only up to a few years ago, we didn't really have a solution for that. And so a lot of what we can do now is say, we take these really complex things that take a lot of money to build simulations for them, and they can pretty much pluck them into low income areas, places that don't particularly speak, some of the languages that we do. And we can sort of take this really complex topics and bundle them up and make them really accessible, really affordable, and really, easy to get to and understand, and all these other kind of capacities. And so that's sort of, at least with recent tech, how I see it really benefits and makes it more widely available.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And I speak Swahili as well. Brandon, kindly chime in as well.
Yeah, I think that we are going to have to expand the scope of what learning encompasses. And I'll speak from just, being American, that learning typically happens inside of a classroom with the teacher being able to be the authoritator of the information that's being provided. And a lot of times we don't recognize when learning is happening outside of the classroom. And so I think these tools for technology allow for people to experience learning in their own personal way. I always tell people that if you're going down a rabbit hole with ChatGPT, this is a really deep and enriching learning experience that you're having. It's showing that you're engaged, it's showing that you're enjoying it, it's showing that you're able to at least walk down and see the connections between maybe, parallel or tangential thinking. And so I think allowing people to realize learning and defining what that learning is for them outside of like a traditional ways of learning is going to be important for all of us.
Yes, powerful, extremely very important when it comes to even defining what an education is and learning outside the box. We don't have to confine education to a class. I think technology has redefined that, and it has never been easier to get education than it is right now, which makes me throw this to you, Dr. Tom. With your music experience, and I believe music goes hand in hand with learning the environment and the context where you are. And this question is very, very, I want you to bring it out in the best way you can. And what strategies have worked in connecting students with knowledge beyond the immediate environment?
Well, music is a social endeavor. You rarely see musicians play alone. You might see the performer on the street or hear a soloist, but I think what makes us all most happy is when we make music together as musicians. And so music education, which has been around for centuries, as we know it now, it's almost an industrialized space, in that you need a building, you need a faculty, you need all these spaces, and it's expensive and it's slow, and the barrier to entry is high and thick. And so with this new technology that allows us to make music together online within about 150-mile radius, you just need the setup at home, similar to what Paige was talking about, a headset, right? Just with a small amount of technology, you can connect to other musicians very easily. And so to me, having wanted to make music all my life, and I have fancy degrees now and things like that, I have privileges and access to spaces that not everyone does. And I'm sort of hyper aware of that. And I know the impulse to make music is, and different musics too. I'd like to stress inclusion, not only just classical music, but also popular musics and traditional musics and all these different various types of traditions that we can make room for in a scalable space like the internet, right? You're not limited to one room where, we have to schedule it for only, 12 hours a day. Now we could have a space where you could have multiple rooms all the time, as long as people connect. So as long as we have people who know how to use the technology and people are open to using the technology, and we have trained teachers that can manage these spaces, it's scary how these possibilities just expand exponentially, as long as we get the human factor. I mean, we have software and hardware, but it's the peopleware that I'm often concerned about, how we use this very powerful technology well, because it's cheap and it's fast, and music education is expensive and slow to get into. So I'm very excited. It's a very new time to do this. So I think the challenges are getting this technology into people's hands and using this new space.
Yeah, definitely. Getting people having to have this technology. And I just want to follow up on what you said on the possibilities. And I want to just boil it down to the music industry. Do you feel like technology is making easier to learn music? Do you feel like there's a very huge shift? Can you brief us on that? What do you feel about the music
I think
industry?
when used correctly, technology and it can when you have people open to the technology and know how to use it, the possibilities are tremendous. In fact, I firmly believe that music making has always been a technology, all the way back to the 4,000-year-old bone flute that we found in a cave somewhere, of humans using material objects. And I say this as an ethnomusicologist, that we've used before electricity. We still had technology in using instruments, whether it was carving instruments out of wood or bone, it didn't matter. That was still using materials. So I think if we think of it that way and think of it as the internet as an augmentation of what we already want to do, and learn to use these two tools better, I think music education is already exploding, and the people who are open to it. I need to stress that. Not everyone wants to be in a two-dimensional space like this. But I think as we see these students come up who don't mind using this space and are so hungry to make music together, we see that how huge the game.
We can go on about this, and I really appreciate your sentiment. That's very lovely. I loved that. And Dr. Charles, I want to also bring this to you. How can educational content be adapted to meet the needs of different communities? And also, Elipo Hen, you can chime in on this as well.
Sure. So educational content can be adapted to meet needs of different communities in a lot of different ways. And one of the ways that we have explored this particular space is basically having flexible learning modalities. We have async programs where students are able to work at their own pace. We also have synchronous programs where, having an instructor led is better for that particular student. So again, by having a flexible modality standards definitely helps out. And that all kind of stems down to what we were talking about before, being able to have access to internet, if it's traditional internet, if it's employing satellite-based internet. But again, different modality seems to be one of the things that really helps in that particular aspect.
Yes, that is very strong. Ellie, do you want to chime in? Add to that. Tell us what you think.
Yeah, 100%. I think the technology access element is super important, but also the techno literacy element is incredibly important, and that's what I'm focusing on. The ways that we can adapt education content to meet communities is to have community-centric pedagogy. So for example, I do technology literacy education in my community through a new organization that I'm starting called 20-Minute Tech Tutor. My focus group is within older populations because more often than not, they do not have access to technology education that is at a pace that works for them, that is able to work within their timeline and schedules, and that meets them where they're at. So instead of saying, how do you not know how to use your email inbox? It is, no, we're not going to undermine you. We're going to walk through of how cool email works. What are the different elements? And I know this to be effective because I've gotten feedback from a student who after a class came up to me and told me, this email is suspicious because I do not recognize this domain. This is using the name of my relative, but they don't normally email. So that's a behavior that is not normal and is using vocabulary from the lecture material. So we need to have community-centric technology education on top of increasing access, meeting communities where they are.
That is well put, and that is very exciting. I would love to see how they are learning as well. I'd really love to see that. I think I'm thinking about collaboration. Ella is collaborating with her community, and I just want to bring you up on this. What role do partnerships between educators, technologies play in strengthening global learning?
I mean, we see it already now with classrooms adapting the technology and trying to educate, like how Ellie said, on educating people on what technology can be used for, but also it kind of brings people from different countries together. And I've seen it through my virtual classes where the cultures influence the behavior in the classroom and people learn from each other, and that's very important. But I also see on the other side that educators, some older educators, don't want to use technology the way it can actually be used to promote and give access to a lot of people. And I truly believe it's the bridge that we needed. Like it bridges the gap between people who have access and people who don't, but also opens us to a new world that many of us don't have access to see. Unless you actually travel around the world and see different communities, you don't actually see what their lives look like. And virtual classrooms are really something that has helped. But also, like, it's not just educating the students, it's also educating the educators, right? On what technology can actually do, because a lot of people have a thought a certain way, they teach a certain way, they have a style of teaching, but they're so removed from what is changing in the real world. Like you see universities today, or even high school students today, that whatever is taught on the books that they're reading is quite different from the real world. So I think the partnership is not just with technologists and educators, but it's also like bringing the real world to the classroom and to see how the times are changing. So we need to adapt to those changing times. So the partnership isn't just between the two of us, it's also within the world itself. So we can bring the world to the classroom in a sense.
Yes.
I couldn't agree more with what you said. Partnership between the world, the real world, and the virtual world. Partnership between ourselves, educators and educators, the current and the traditional world. That is very well put. And I saw your Page agreeing to that. Do you want to add something to what she just stated?
Certainly. When I just want to add on and contribute to this idea of making things relevant, right? No more teaching like this Western white mono perspective, right? So cross-cultural exchange. I'm right now in a time where an administration is saying no DI, but DI is like a way of life, right? It's as important as air or breathing or being, right? Is inclusion and being. And so in doubling down, I guess that is one thing that I was thinking, but also in making things relevant and rewarding and fun and engaging and social and peer-to-peer. So doing like learn to earn to learn, social peer, even like reward through tokens or leveling up and getting like a certain awesome like wearable because you've now achieved these learning initiatives, or having opportunities for investors to invest in the upskilling of diverse professionals throughout the world, right?
Yes.
So imagine all these ways of social learning and making each other's progress a win-win for all.
Definitely, that is very, very, very important that you have mentioned to do with rewards. I believe rewards. Humans are wired for rewards. When we bring in the rewards and social aspect to learning, it becomes even better. You know, Brandon, as I was listening to Paige, I was thinking about you as well when it comes to working together and sharing knowledge, and also to you, Cinnamon. How can learning institutions work together across regions to share knowledge? And this is Brandon Ellis, then Cinnamon, and then over to you, Brandon Hope. I see you're ready for that. I'm going to bring you in as well. Brandon Ellis?
So, as far as like bringing a bunch of different learning institutions together, tying into the global learning theme, I think when you tie in global learning, you typically bring in real world problems. And so when you align a bunch of institutions who, whether it's, I know there's another music group on here saying, hey, we're going to create a symphony with a student from 10 universities coming together to create an orchestra, or I have 10 universities coming together to find a sweet potato vine that grows best in 3D, so they get the data from that. I think what the crux of it all comes to is just having some kind of central problem that's fun, because when you take a hard problem and make it fun, it becomes easy. And when you make things easy, it gets done. And so a lot of it is just refining that over and over and using a lot of the environments that a lot of us are creating to sort of facilitate those opportunities. So
Sure. Very profound. Cinnamon, then to you, Brandon.
Listening to all of you, it's absolutely amazing to be here with such like-minded individuals. I'm very excited. The last three questions that you answered, I wanted to just interject one of my sheroes, which is Gloria Ladson Billings, and she is the author of Culturally Relevant Pedagogy. You both touched on it, Paige and Ellie, and you almost just brought the whole research right into the conversation here. But that's exactly where we're at right now. And as far as making it relevant, making it culturally relevant, and putting it in our learning works. One of the things I heard also earlier this week was the new way to work was collaboration. And I would like to kind of tweak that a little and say the new way to learn is collaboration as well. It takes a village to put it together, to put the hands to the ground, to get it out the mud and make this happen. As far as the partnerships with institution, like Brandon just spoke of, like that is already happening once again at that level though. And it looks really good on paper. It is accessible to all of us. It is not, and it's now asking us, each one of us, each one teach one, to take it and put it into action. So like Brandon was saying, it's out there, it's happening. You can get it online, you can get it offline, you can get it through music, you can get it through any form of STEAM education. The big steps here are what we need to do is get it out in there. Ellie is doing it. She is touching the community directly and receiving direct feedback. I do it with our K through 12 as well as our professionals, providing professional engineer certifications, because I'm at the point right now where they've been exposed. Our communities are being addressed. And that's kind of where the ball is dropping right there. Oh, look, this is here. Look what you can do. And that's kind of where we're at right now as a whole. And what we need, what I'm feeling as though the actions I'm taking personally are saying, okay, now let's get you certified. Let's start that pathway into whatever career path you're going to take this, whatever process you're going to apply it to. You now have the actual tools that are needed to do so. And we have to get this.
Cinnamon. And please hold that thought. I'm going to come back to you on that. And I felt that was a very, very strong sentiment. And I see Brandon wants to build something on that. Brandon, can you build something on that? Tell us what you think.
Yeah, sure. This is great. But much of my work prior to technology was in cooperative development and figuring out how we establish more equitable supply chains and more, at least, cooperative economic thought. So I have a shero also that I want to shout out and plug, is Jessica Gordon Niemhart. She wrote the book Collective Courage. And as everyone's mentioning, there are models for just how we can better work together in a more organized, or even more, at least, I don't know, framework that exists for collective work in mutual aid societies. And so there's a lot of things out there to be inspired by. So collective courage is just a plug that I put out there for folks to check out.
Yes, I'm taking that on. And, I just want to bring this to you out here again. What factors contribute to making education more adaptable to real world needs? And Dr. Charles and Dr. Tom, can you feel free to chime in quickly on this? Abir, over to you.
Yeah.
Sure. One of the key things that we do is
Okay,
industry
we had
collaboration.
Abir first, and then over to you, Dr. Charles. We had
Oh,
Abir. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. We're coming to you.
Sorry about that. Well, I think education fails when it's outdated. And especially today, we have to prepare the next generation for jobs that don't exist at the moment. And there's a lot of things that is changing in technology, and every single day there's a new update. The industry is learning with working. And that's what it is right now. So the students and people who want to upskill, maybe even change their career paths, they need to be a constant sponge to the new information that keeps coming in the industry today. And it's no longer the real world where we are working and the classroom where we're studying. It's kind of all merged together, and it's very important that students today, whether you're in high school, college, whatever it is that you're doing, you have a thread to the real information that keeps coming in, what is changing in the world, and the new technology, especially in AI. And that seems to be where we're moving towards, at least in the next few years, in terms of the job opportunities. And I don't mean it in a negative sense where it's going to take over the jobs. I think it's more like a tool that we can work with. But educating that, understanding that, on how you can use this tool, which is great and amazing, to your work, and implement that, because there's no replacing the human mind. But if we are not constantly adapting to what's going on and being
Yeah.
aware of it, we will simply rust like iron, right? If you just sit still, you're just going to become redundant. So I don't think we have the option or the ability anymore to just sit back and be like, okay, so the technology is changing, that's great, it's just for this
Yes.
season. That's no longer an option. We need
Yeah.
to be as dynamic as the industry is today, and that's
Yeah.
what's very important.
Yeah, but what I'm getting from you is survive and adapt or die. Charles, Dr. Charles, please join in. Give us your
Yeah,
sentiment.
I was going to
Quickly.
go along the same lines. One of the major things that we do is that we have an advisory board with industry professionals. And every year we get together with them and they kind of give us the roadmap, as well as the heartbeat of where the industry is going. And we adjust our curriculum to meet those demands, to make sure that we stay in line with some of these demands, stay in line with some of these future demands, to provide our students with a leg up. So I definitely agree in that particular component.
Yes, that is very, very remarkable. Dr. Tom, do you have sentiments on that?
Yes, I do, and I'll try to be brief. I think we need to remain or be more student centric. I think we need to be more the guide on the side and less the sage on the stage, and ask our students what they want to learn and use our experiences and our knowledge and our access to networks to help them go down a road that they want to go down. And listen more. We just have to listen to our students, and with our knowledge of the industry, of course, at hand. But I think as long as we are allowing them to say, this is what I want to learn. For example, in my ensemble for the last 2 years, instead of saying these are the songs you're going to learn, the first rehearsal I ask, what songs do you want to learn? And we put a list together. And so we're playing a set list of tunes that I would have never dreamt of. But their level of engagement has gone through the roof because they are working on music that they identify with, their music that they want to get command over. And we're still teaching the fundamentals of music, rhythm, pitch, harmony, all that great stuff. It's just the repertoire is chosen by them. Or, I nudge and say, maybe not that one, that's a little too hard, or maybe have you considered this one? But they are much more in the discussion. And so they are generating or helping. They have a part in generating on what is studied, what is the content of the class.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that experience in that context. I found that very, very remarkable, and I think I want to do some music as well when I'm listening to you. Ellie, you're a community guru here, if you may, and I just want to bring this to you again. How can communities create environments that encourage lifelong learning? You mentioned you teaching even the elders. You mentioned now they can detect even malicious or suspicious emails, but how do you encourage them to continue that zeal of learning? And anyone can tell me as well. Ellie, please go.
Yeah, I entirely agree with what you just said, Dr. Tom. I mean, we all are folks who have a plethora of knowledge, but you have to understand, number one, what are your students actually seeking from you? And number two, how have your students experienced education prior to you? You might be super excited to engage with them and teach them a plethora of things, but from my own experiences educating prior to even launching 20-Minute Tech Tutor, you have to understand that many students have had educational experiences prior to you, and you have to engage with what they think they might be walking into. So, for example, with my teaching with 20-Minute Tech Tutor, reminding students of there is no basic question, there is no too basic question, there is no shame in not knowing things. Interrupt my lectures for questions. Don't feel like you have to wait and try to remember or have to try to write down your questions. Just shout it out. You will not be rude. So adapting your learning environment to allow for your student to relax into who they are as a learner, and then work with your educational materials and pedagogy in order to support that learner. Because when you encourage students to engage with the materials in the ways that they do best, they automatically start working through and building those bridges in their brain, and they're able to explain it to their peers and thus become teachers themselves. Each one teach one type methodology. So encourage by reminding them that they are themselves as capable as students as they are as future teachers.
Yes. Yeah. Anyone who wanted to add on that, please add.
Sorry. I just wanted to add on to in terms of mentorship. I mean, I think today that's a big trend because there's a lot that you can't teach when you have a bigger classroom. And there's a lot because every person, every student learns differently, has different requirements, and that's also now broken into a culture because with virtual learning, we connect to different countries as well. So they learn at different paces. So I think having some office hours or something outside where you're mentoring them in terms of a one-on-one interaction is really helpful, and it's something that has to be instilled today. And also micro learning, because sadly attention spans have reduced to just a short form reel on YouTube. Um, so I keep noticing this trend where people get bored after about 30 minutes, nobody's really listening. So
Yeah.
having more micro bite-sized pieces in your curriculum is really helpful in terms of helping them understand it and then